Alright everybody, welcome to this presentation on how we can go from puzzles to proficiency and the opportunities of coding competitions. The goal of today is to talk a bit about the context, why we might need such a thing. We're going to talk a bit about why it's fun, how we can learn from it, and I'm also going to give some tips and tricks on how to get started with coding competitions and maybe organize one as well. So about the context. We have some very old games like chess and Go, some go centuries back. And if you think about iconic landmarks, chances are at some point you'll think of the Colosseum, which was built by the Romans in Rome around the 70 AD, where they put up competition front and center as entertainment. Battles were fought, races were had. And I think nowadays that if you put two kids into an empty room with just a stone, they'll think of some games, some competition, like who can throw the rock the farthest, or who can make the biggest dent in the wall. And I think this inherently shows that we as humans are quite competitive. But when we look at what we do as engineers, we're mostly competing on the business side of things, not on the IT side of things. Of course, good IT helps the business. It helps us make better features, be more reliable, be cheaper. But we're not directly competing on that IT level, which is why I think that sometimes as engineers we should look towards it for that challenge ourselves. Now, I hope that some of you know this or recognize this. This is the gold star that you get if you complete the challenge for Advent of Code. And Advent of Code is a very well-made programming competition. It runs from the 1st of December until Christmas, just like an Advent calendar, but instead of having a gift each day, you have a challenge to complete. And like I said, it's extremely well made. There's links to science and history. Online there's a huge community that provides us with a lot of memes as well. And these puzzles, they start out easy and get progressively more difficult. And because there's a new challenge each day, there's sort of a pressure to deliver something. But what is that something? Well, that's the beauty of it. They just provide you with a data set, and you just have to provide an answer. They don't care about how you get there. So you see people getting creative. People start doing weirdest things. Some people stay with their own language, but other people try and make it run on very old machines. Some people try and experiment with things that are new, or at least new to them. And it's so nice to see what other people do with it. And you get to set your own metrics. So this is something that I did as well. At some point I wanted to start to learn Kotlin. And I was looking for something to actually work with. And it was November, so I was brainstorming, was like, oh, Advent of Code is coming, so let's try and do that in Kotlin. And I did it. And the first day was a bit of a struggle because of all of the syntax that's a bit different. But in general, it was quite easy. And I completed the challenge, and that's the moment you feel like this, right? It feels good to accomplish something, even if it's only just this small. And to, you know, to have learned something. But that's the thing, right? The moment I was done with the challenge, I went online and I saw other people and what they did in Kotlin, and I felt like this little kid again. Because I got to improve, I got to learn, I got to see what other more experienced people did in that new language that I was learning. So I stuck with Kotlin, I used it for personal projects for quite a bit. And when I interviewed at ING, we actually had a very interesting discussion on the idiomatic differences between Java and Kotlin and their handling of null values, which I believe helped me get hired at ING. So I think this already shows that programming competitions like Advent of Code can challenge you, can be fun, and can be beneficial to you. And the fun thing is, I was out drinking with some friends in December, and I wanted to leave at 10. And normally, I'm one of the last people there. So they asked, well, Guus, are you okay? Are you feeling all right? Because you're leaving early. That's not normal for you. I'm like, well, I have this programming competition where the challenges are put online at 6 in the morning. So at 6 in the morning, I want to be live and awake to get an edge on other people. So I shared Advent of Code with them. And some of my friends also started doing it. And were quite enthusiastic about it, which made me introduce it into some of my workplaces as well. And the most amazing thing happened. They enjoyed it as well. You get to discuss it, you get down to the nitty-gritty. and you start seeing communities starting to form. And this is something that not only we as engineers enjoy, but something that companies as well enjoy, right? Having people socialize with each other, and that part of the engineering mindset to get down to the bottom of it, not just getting an answer, but getting it right. So this is something that we can all benefit from. And that's why I think we should do more of this. So let me try and help you get started as a participant, because participating in such a thing for the first time can be very difficult, can be very hard. And the first tip I always give is read. Now, this is a very obvious one, but chances are, because it is your first competition, you feel some sort of rush. You feel like you need to get the answer the fastest. And that's not a strange thing. That's a very good thing, because you're competing and you want to be the best, right? However, because you want a solution, and how do you get the solution? You get your solution by writing code. So you want to write code, but because that's how you feel productive. However, the moment you start skimming the problem statement, you start skipping over words. You start skipping over parts of the problem, and maybe you'll be solving the wrong problem. So read and read again, read it properly. If something is in the problem description, you're probably going to need it. The second tip is based on a very famous quote: premature optimization is the root of all evil, and depending on who you ask, it's by Sir Tony Hoare or Donald Knuth. Now I want to recontextualize this one a bit. Normally it's very much in terms of runtime optimization. But when doing these coding competitions, you probably want to optimize something else. In these coding competitions, it's about the time between the release of the challenge and the moment you hand in your answer. It's not about the runtime, it's about the development time. So if there's two possible solutions according to you, and one takes 5 minutes to write, but has a runtime of a minute, and the other one takes 50 minutes to write, but runs in 10 milliseconds, you're better off with the first one. In my personal experience, a minute of runtime is just about the cutoff point to maybe try and optimize, not before. The last tip I want to give to you as a participant is do not over-challenge yourself. Participating the first time is already a big step. Do not try to limit yourself or challenge yourself further by doing a new language. Because at that moment you might get frustrated at the competition, at the challenges you have. And you might not learn, or you might not do a second one because of that frustration. So for the first time, make yourself comfortable. Get a nice cup of tea and work in an environment that you know that you love. That way you can get started quite easily. And once you've done a few of these challenges, that's the moment that you might actually consider, okay, so how do I actually get started as an organizer, as a next challenge? I've organized some of these challenges, these programming competitions myself during my time as a student at the University of Groningen for my study association. And I think it's a very nice thing to do. We had an evening that was sponsored by a company, so they paid for the beer and the prizes, which is a very nice thing for the students to have. And the idea is that if something doesn't work as you expect them to work, you take a drink. It's just a suggestion, but at the end of the evening, people are having a lot of fun with it. So do with it what you want. But the reason I think it's a very good thing to organize such a thing, not only because you can learn as a way to challenge yourself, is because you have to change your mindset. Normally, when you're working as a programmer, you start with a problem and you create your code to get to a solution. But when you're organizing something like that, you sort of have the solution in mind that you want people to program, and you sort of backtrack towards a problem. So you're reversing the work you're normally doing. This can be very helpful also in your daily life. And you have to be careful about what sort of pitfalls you'll be laying. I just told you that premature optimization is the root of all evil. Well, you could create an optimization problem, something that's very hard to compute, and they have to optimize to get to the right answer. But you also have to be careful about the skills that might be needed. Some people don't have a programming background, so for them, doing stuff with recursion might be very hard, while some people are not as analytical. So having a logic puzzle that they don't even need to code for might be an interesting challenge to them. And others might not have a math background. But these backgrounds is something that I really want you to keep in mind as well, because the first hint, the first tip is to personalize the programming competition to your participants. At the university, we have a lot of students with a mathematical background. There's a lot of math involved during the program. So we were able to use that math in the challenges. However, if you are working with people from various different backgrounds, doing very math-heavy challenges is probably something they won't enjoy. Another thing that you can really easily use is to use known situations, known famous names, or things that are known within your community, and introduce them in the problem statements. We used professor names, we used situations that happened within the city association, just as an extra loop for people to get involved and get hooked, and to make it memorable. And this is something that people really enjoyed. Then the problems themselves. Like I said, this is something that or at least we tell ourselves we're not good at, it's creating problems. We try to solve them, right? And therefore it's more than okay to take inspiration. There's a lot of people that shared their challenges online for things like Crash and Compile or a hackathon or something like that. There's Project Euler, which is very math-based, but it's a project for people that want to improve their programming. They have a lot of example challenges, but also solutions for them. So that might even save you some work. You can go to Wikipedia for math sequences, math problems, logical problems, and go there for your inspiration. I also want to note, though, that providing data might present a more interesting challenge, but also introduces a lot of work that people have to do to actually read the data, because not everyone will be using the programming environment that you might expect them to. And then once you actually found a problem that you want to create a challenge for, you have to create a problem statement. And this is kind of finicky, at least for me. I'm a nerd. I try to do words, but sometimes quite difficult. And the problem statement needs to be precise, so people actually know what the problem is. But you don't want to give away too much. You don't want to give them the Fibonacci sequence and ask them to program it. That's easy. You sort of create a convoluted story that sort of shares this Fibonacci sequence, and then they have to distill it from the story. And this is also a good point where you can ask a colleague or a friend to do this challenge, so that you sort of know how people interpret it, but also how long it takes for them to finish it. Which leads to the last tip that I'm going to give. Make sure you have enough challenges. If you have 4 hours, make sure you have for at least 5 hours in challenges, because it is a race, and some people will be faster than you might expect. I once had an event where we thought we had enough challenges, but turns out halfway through we were already through all of them. That was bad organization on our part, but we decided to impromptu generate some extra challenges. The effect of that was that I was actually programming against the people that were participating, and while they were drunk and I was not, it was still an interesting race to see. So to conclude, I hope you will challenge yourself in the programming competition, participate. Advent of Code is around the corner. Look it up. You can try the exercise of last year still. I want you guys to have fun, learn while doing it. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.